Hi guys, my name is May Sim and I'm a professional psychological astrologer. Now today, I'm going to do something a little bit different from what I normally do. You can see I've got my laptop here and I'm about to prepare for an article that I'm producing sometime next week about people who run cults. So these are the cult leaders. And by cult leaders, what I mean, these are the people who run the kind of cults where they gather people, sell them a philosophy, and some of it involves like sex and manipulation and all those like juicy details. But most people, most of society would look at these guys and say, oh, you know, he's such a psychotic, like a manipulative bastard kind of thing. So I'm going to look at their charts and see what is it about. Not just these people who want to start a cult, but also what does it kind of say about the people who decide to join the cult leaders, right? And I'm interested in this because, you know, I'm a psychological astrologer. So in preparation for this video, on my honor, I have not done any preparation on any of these charts. So this is complete behind the scenes. I'm going to look at the charts right now on camera and sort of share with you what some of my first impressions are. So like I said, this is in preparation for an article, and by the time you see this video on YouTube, the article will be ready. And if you go and check in the description, I'm sure the article that I'm about to write, the link is going to be there, okay? So let's get started and we're going to look at charts. So one of the things that I normally do is, you see, I'm human too, and I'm going to have certain assumptions about what I'm going to see in cult leaders' charts. And the funny thing is, once I open these charts, I may be proven right or I might be wrong. And sometimes it's interesting to sort of think through what are some of my prejudices or expectations before I look at the chart, so that I know that I'm not sort of making stuff up when I'm looking at the chart. So for the people who aren't so familiar with cult leaders, I know I have very funny taste in the people I'm interested in. But a lot of these cult leaders, first of all, they're men. And many of them have been associated with some kind of like, sort of like a sexual power. And those of you who are familiar with astrological signs, you would expect these people to be very scorpionic, for example. Like there's the themes of like sex and manipulation and control. That might be one of those running, I'm expecting to see something like that. And most people would expect to see, say, the planet Pluto to be very powerful. So if you're familiar with Pluto, it's the god of the underworld. So again, the similar themes of control and manipulation. So I'm expecting those to be strong. But I think also, I mean, just on a logical level, if they're going to be successful at getting people to sort of follow them, and if you think about it, you know, Warren Jeffs, for example, had something like, I don't even know how many wives he's got, 60-odd, 80-odd wives, and lots of children. And what this means is, if we assume that women are not coerced to marry him, then he must have been pretty charming, isn't it? Now, a lot of these guys are like, they may not have started out as multi-millionaires. And if all these people are going to join them, live with them, accept their philosophy, I'm expecting to see charm. And what would charm look like in an astrological chart? Are there certain signs? I would expect to see perhaps even the planet Venus might be very powerful in the chart, so that make them attractive. I'm also expecting to see leadership, because these guys have large groups of people who follow their every move. And I think to a large extent, not all of them, but definitely some of them, like David Koresh and as well as Warren Jeffs, have used religion or certain beliefs to sort of lead their people. And I'm thinking that they kind of need to have certain characteristics that are very spiritual or perhaps very religious, like a philosophical teacher. So these are things that I'm expecting to see, right? So now without any further ado, we can actually jump into this, right? The first guy on my list here is this is Charles Manson. So for those of you who don't know, that this was like a long time ago. He was born in 1934, right? So there are all these. It was quite well known at the time, the Manson family, and they were most known for killing Sharon Tate, which is a Hollywood actress. Okay, so they had this family. So let's have a look at the chart. And okay, now this one is interesting because I'm seeing a lot of Scorpio here. So you see this like M-looking sign with this dark blue thing. So there's a lot of Scorpio here. And that a lot of it is sort of like centered here in the 7th house, tells me that there's this charm and an ability to sort of hold a person in a one-on-one setting. So I thought that is very interesting. And if you see sort of Pluto here, and these are the things that I expected to see, right? So Pluto is strong. And if you look at the 4th house, this is to do with a family setting. So it's like when we tend to think of family as being like father, mother, and children, but not always. Sometimes a family is what we call it to be, is where we are secure. So when I see Pluto here, yeah, I don't think there's a coincidence that his cult is called the Manson family. And I thought this is, there are a few other things. If I see Mars and Neptune here, if you read my article, I might talk a little bit about this and how it could lead to some forms of sexual desires and specific forms of sexual perversions, yeah? And also, if I look at the moon up here, now the moon is in Aquarius. And I found that, Aquarius is a very electric sign. And the moon is emotions. So one of the first impressions I'm getting from this chart here is that he might not come across as being a very emo kind of person, despite being Scorpio. But the Aquarius can mean, if you watch my camera, it's sort of like this shaking, electric static kind of energy. And it can mean that his emotions just sort of like come on and off like that. So, and I probably will talk about this in future videos, but sometimes when we look at people who do what we might call like perverted stuff, and by the way, I'll caveat this, okay? Lots of people have this kind of placement. It doesn't mean that you're all like cult leaders, yeah? But I think this placement can make it feel that the connection with people, it's very on and off, okay? So, and unstable emotions is one possibility. Even normal people have this, yeah? Okay, so that's one combination I see here now. Very interesting. So if I were to look at, say, now this other one is David Koresh, and some of you might have, if you are like familiar with world events, there is a huge stand down between David Koresh and the US police force in a place called Waco, W-A-C-O. So this standout was pretty amazing because he locked all the children and women inside, and there was this like bombing and shootout. So that was like a major event at the time. So David Koresh, now interestingly, look at that, oh my god, like he also has moon in Aquarius. So much as an astrologer, when I'm studying patterns in specific types of people, I'm looking for like similarities. And here we have the second placement of the moon in this time is in the 5th house, but moon in Aquarius too. I also see that the Mars is in Virgo once again. And the funny thing is, Charles Manson had that too, right? So Mars is in Virgo, and but you see, the funny thing is, David Koresh doesn't have that whole family thing, even though he had like this gigantic family with lots of wives and lots of children. But what I do see is here, this is where most of it is centered. I think that's interesting because for Charles Manson, it's a one-on-one thing. But for David Koresh, it seems like his focus is more on a group element. Very interesting. And there's a lot of this Leo energy as well. Probably that he actually likes the attention. In fact, I think Charles Manson, being a Scorpio, is much less likely to garner the attention. I'm not saying that he didn't like it, but I think Charles Manson was more about like the one-on-one control. This one, I think he would have wanted to be a star, right? I'll get more into it and I'll write more in my article. So let's look at the last one. This is Warren Jeffs, and some of you may or may not have heard about this. I thought I got very weird taste, okay? But he's the leader of a group called the FLDS. And if you go online, you can actually easily find videos and pictures of his followers. And the women are dressed in these pastel-colored prairie dresses, and they all live like it is like sometime in like, I don't know, the late 1800s or something, with no technology and very God-fearing. Everybody has to follow the rules type of thing. Warren Jeffs is in jail right now because he's been arrested for child trafficking and I think underage sexual relationships with people. So Warren Jeffs is, if I look around here, well, he doesn't have the moon in Aquarius, so that's one thing that's different. But those of you watching who are familiar with my psychological astrology profiles, you know that moon in Aquarius and moon Uranus like this belong to the same profile. And this is known as Moon Uranus, the humanitarian. And not surprising here that these people want to build like a large group of people in a community that they consider as family. So that's kind of in together with that placement. And you see this Mars and Neptune, these two planets together. Now we saw the exact same thing that was in Charles Manson's chart, right? So that's something quite similar there. I will probably cover this in my article too. This one, very interesting. And now the thing is about Warren Jeffs is also kind of like the leader of his church, the FLDS church. And those of you who are familiar with the ninth house know that it's somewhat associated with religion. And also, this red color signs here, these are Sagittarius. Again, it's the sign of a religious studies, religious broadcasting. So a very useful placement for somebody who needs to be a religious leader, sort of sharing a philosophy from a pulpit, for example. Okay, now that I'm looking at my charts, I realize I probably shouldn't have done that because actually Warren Jeffs, his birth time is not known. I've listed it here as 12 noon, so I made a mistake there. I really shouldn't have looked at the ninth house. But the sun in Sagittarius, yeah, that could be somebody who needs a philosophy to work with. But all in all, very interesting. And I promise you, I didn't do any preparation at all. It's the first time I'm doing this in front of a camera. But I already see a few patterns that will make for an excellent article. So those of you who are going to check out the article, as I'm doing this video, I'm formulating what I'm going to cover. And I think a few themes that I've gotten from looking at these charts here are that the funny thing is, at least at first glance, I don't see control necessarily as being the top priority of these people. What I've seen so far is, generally speaking, the need to sort of build a community of their own choice. That means they've decided what that family is going to be like. And I think so far, all three charts have shown me indications of people with very high ideals. And this makes sense because if you really look at the literature behind a lot of cult leaders, and you have to understand that there are people who follow these cult leaders. And one of the things I'm considering right now is that these leaders have given them a version of the world that sounds very attractive, and which is why possibly a better alternative to the real world that we currently have right now. And they've been very effective at sort of sharing this world vision with their followers as well. And you know, I think it's interesting because we want to consider who are we to say that this particular worldview is necessarily right or wrong? Okay, notwithstanding the fact that these guys are doing not very nice things to children and to sex and young people. Taking the crimes aside, this is one of those things that I did not expect to see in the chart. Okay, so for those of you who enjoyed this video, okay, so please check out my article. Go click on it. And you know, in follow-up videos, I might be quite interested in talking about how about modern day cults, because these guys existed a long time ago. They operated a long time ago. But you know, there are many forms of modern day cults, and I'll be interested to hear what kind of other behind the scenes videos you might be interested to see. Leave your comments below, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.